second event. Don't play with me. Listen, don't play with me.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I didn't even know about this, okay? So I'm out to ad lib and
You a historian.
do what I do, okay? But good evening, everyone. This is my third meeting today, Capitol all day, and I talked to Calvin today. And we were trying to strategize to see what we can do. I met Calvin whilst I was serving time in prison. I had a life sentence. I went to prison in 1983. I met Calvin as a young kid, and we worked together in the law library. And our job was to help men not only access their records, but we did disciplinary code. He worked on death row, and I had the great idea that I wanted to get out of the library, NARS, and all of us work together, that I wanted to help the mentally ill in prison. Because we saw men being mistreated. Calvin has a love for helping people. And we became very, very good friends. And who would have known that this journey would have taken this turn? I got out in 2003. Calvin got out 8 years later. I remember meeting him at Wilbur Rito's house with his attorney, Keith Nordyke, that helped us all while we were in prison to do seminars and help men that were in prison. And the journey was a long journey. I've been home now 23 years. And Calvin got out in 2011. And his dream job was to help men and women across the state to access their records, especially if you was from Orleans Parish. And I don't think people understand what it means to access your records. When you're in the parish prison, it's a zoo. You fighting to get your records, and the attorney, you can't afford an attorney or someone is appointed to you. And can you imagine doing your taxes without all your paperwork? I don't know how that comes to me, but trying to describe what it's like to access records and to prove your case, whether you're innocent or whether you're trying to get rid of a life sentence. Having your records is very, very important. And it's called, after you're convicted, you're sentenced, and then you have a certain time to do what they call post-conviction relief. And Calvin could not get his records. But we worked so hard to help other men in prison to access the court. Calvin got several people out of prison as inmate counsel. We fought to help men on death row. We fought to help the men on in the mental health unit. And I want to describe the mental health unit right now. Could you imagine seeing a man sitting in a cell just cutting himself up? And at that time, they were giving people Thorazine, Prolixin, and I'm going to give you an illustration, a jaw just like this. And he would be locked in. And we decided we needed to change that. And we fought with Warden Kane, and we had a lady there by the name of Delta Kaczynski, mental health director, and we changed the way people were treated in the mental health unit. We changed the way people were treated on death row. We changed the way people were treated, what we call down the wall. So Calvin is a very, very good friend of mine. And I remember getting a phone call, said, man, I done did it. I said, you did what? He said, I qualified for clerk of court. And my first thought was, clerk of court? You always said you wanted to do that, but you gonna really do this? And that's what he did. He qualified. Norris, I worked for VOTE, Voice of the Experience, and Norris resigned from his executive position to manage Calvin's campaign. And we did what's called a ground game campaign. That means knocking on doors, that means making phone calls. And by the way, Calvin got a few $100s out of it too. and you're laughing, but I tell people all the time, if you're not willing to invest in something, that means you're not believing it. I believed in Calvin. And every time I got a little note, I need a couple $100, I need this, we would do that. And the campaign picked up. We got in the runoff, and nobody gave us a chance. In fact, I had some good friends down there, elected officials, said, man, we're gonna whoop y'all behind, and hey, you ain't gonna never see the light of day. That evening, we worked all day long. In fact, a couple of us in the room here was actually there. I see my good friend down back in the back. You see a picture, we were all taking a picture on Carrollton and Contact Street. Because we had worked all day long, and Calvin said, hey, man, you need to come by my place and change. And if you know it, I heard Reverend Anderson said, Calvin, a modest person. He still wears the same little shirt and jacket. He's had an opportunity to get suits and from Rubenstein Brothers and all that. He said, man, I want to keep it plain. I want to keep it simple. I want to be who I am. And that night, riding with him to the victory party. We hadn't won yet. We know how to download the Go Vote app and look at the early vote coming in, and lo and behold, we looked at the early vote, and we were winning in the early vote. And I don't know how many people understand when you're looking at the vote app, if you're looking at your early vote, you got a shot. But we knew we hadn't won yet. And they called the election early. And Calvin won by 20,000 votes.
Come on.
68% of the vote. And when it looked like then, we're on our way to achieving a dream. But how many of you know that this state, the elected officials, can cut your dreams off? This is nothing new in Louisiana. I mean, y'all looking at me strange. This is nothing new in Louisiana. I have a good friend called it Louisiana. And we said, well, first of all, he got elected in November we won, but he didn't take office until really next month, May, which we thought was very not right, because he should have been going in right away. But because of Landrew years ago during the festival in New Orleans, he wanted to change, and so the sheriff doesn't take office till May, and clerk of court, but the mayor's already taken office. The city council has already taken office. And at that time, we kind of felt uneasy about it, not understanding what was going on. And then, with all the joy and all the hard work, we read a bill that's pre-filed, Senate Bill 256, by J. Morrison from West Monroe. And we said, okay, this is crazy here. You know, you want to merge the clerk of court's office. And by the way, in all fairness, Orleans Parish is the only parish that has two clerk of courts. We have a civil side and we have a criminal side. Everybody else across the other parishes have one clerk. But the day of that hearing, when Jay Morrison led, about how he wanted to do this, and he used it on saving money. And how many of you in here know that you can go back and look at the archives? You can go on the left-hand side of the legislature, you can go back and you can click on that day and you can actually watch that hearing. And we were sitting there looking at, is this really gonna happen? Not only are you talking about taking somebody's job, but you're saying the voters don't matter. I'm gonna say that again, that the voters don't matter. And I have a little saying I tell people, and Norris and Calvin, all of us from being in prison, today I'm on the menu, tomorrow you're on the menu. And we are seeing these things right now. And it's all because of Lil Jeff. And I have to be careful when I'm saying that, because if I'm sitting at the table, you have to be respectful and understand. But when I look at what's going on with a man that got elected with 18.9% of the vote, when people do not go vote, this is what you get. This is what you get when you don't go vote. This is what you get. And by the way, not only did he take he's trying to take Calvin's job, but he's also taken 4 judges out of Orleans Parish, 2 civil court judges. And here's a man that's from North Louisiana and West Monroe. And the picture that I saw is that he didn't do anything about Ronald Green. He didn't do anything about the judges there. And I'll always remember that Ronald Green, because that's what I saw. I saw those blue eyes and I saw that hate. How dare a former incarcerated person pull himself up by the bootstraps and do good and become an elected official. And then I've heard that the Attorney General said she's really behind this. Because if you notice, he had problems with the exoneration and all those things. So if you look back at this, and now she says, what I was told is that he'll only take office over my dead body. That's how far people will go to nullify your vote. Here, I'll be 81 this year. So I've seen this movie before. I saw my father, I saw my grandfather fight for voting and voting rights, and here I am today fighting for the same thing. When is enough enough? We're looking at doing some things with Calvin and trying to help and everything, but what I read and look at, when you have a Goliath, send a David to have the job. Calvin is like the David. Calvin is like the David. And guess what? We're not giving up. We're not giving up. We have a saying in our organization, no surrender, no retreat. Because once you give up, then it's all over. Calvin, the jailhouse lawyer, was going across the country. I've seen things on CNN. I've seen all kinds of things. But think about this. When I testified the other day at the hearing, prison, when you sent me to prison for a crime that I did commit, and Calvin was sent to prison for a crime he didn't commit. Big difference. But when you're sent to prison, you're sent to prison to be punished, corrected, and rehabilitated to come back out in society to be a better person. Am I right?
Right.
Am I right?
Yes.
If I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw this guy say, how dare you come out and do this? Calvin came out, went to Tulane, that wasn't enough, went to Lewis and Clark, got his law degree, and all these things. And now you're gonna take his job from him. Calvin is my good buddy, he's my good friend. And the night that you're here, what can you do to help? First of all, I need you to pray. Because one thing I know, God can change anything. You know, I am disappointed in the Democratic Party. I'm disappointed in Troy Carter. I'm disappointed. And by the way, when we ran for office in New Orleans, the entire Democratic Party was against us. And we still won the David Goliath. But Troy Carter has not said one word. And I know Troy personally. Troy Carter, as a congressman, has not said one word. So tonight, my introduction for Calvin is you have to believe in the vision. You have to believe what God has given him for his journey. And his journey is to be the clerk of court of Orleans Parish. Are there some things in the background that I'm not able to say right now? Sure is. We're not giving up. But thankful that you're here, that you can go tell somebody what you heard. Because once we become fearful, guess what? I'm on the menu today, Calvin on the menu today, tomorrow, your voting rights is going to be diluted. And by the way, that's just what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure our vote does not count. And I cannot understand for the life of me how we fought so hard to get voting rights and people don't go vote.
Amen.
And I heard somebody say the other day, well, if they took Calvin's job, that means the vote, vote don't matter no way. I don't have that attitude. My attitude is, hey, I'm gonna vote. I just left a meeting with Together Baton Rouge about the St. George issue. And our organization, we have voted no across the board on all those amendments. But if you don't go out and vote, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Nothing never changes. And I thank you for listening to me. I could go on and on about Calvin. I could tell you some stories about Calvin. But today, you need to understand that right now, he's our David going up against Goliath. And if we don't stand up and say something, how many of you talk to your state representative about this issue? Nobody raise their hand. You need to talk to your state representative You need to call the governor's office. If you need the phone number, we've been lighting Jay Morrison's office up. We've been lighting the governor's office up. Because they think if you quiet, that means guess what? I can come over and I can just slap you upside the face. It ain't nothing you gonna do. Okay, next time I'm just gonna punch you in your mouth. You ain't gonna do nothing. I'm gonna punch you in your eye. If we don't learn to fight back, ladies and gentlemen, and make us think about this, we're seeing CNN, we're seeing national, because people at national are wondering, how can you do this? How can you nullify not just taking Calvin, taking his job, but you saying the people that voted for him, their vote doesn't count. So ladies and gentlemen, my end is no surrender.
No retreat.
No retreat.
Y'all kind of weak. Y'all kind of weak. I don't know whether I want to go to battle with y'all. No surrender.
No retreat.
Y'all got it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Number one, when have a Goliath send a David to handle the job?
Checo kept making mention of David, and so go ahead. Yeah.
Leave you to find the vision, or it's not where you finish.
No, notice the hat.
For you, and you choose service. Be a lifelong learner. Since its release in 20 access to the courts for incarcerated people. 2025, the people of New Orleans elected.
As Checo alluded to, that people around the country are looking at us, and they're honestly trying to figure out what's wrong with you. Why are you waiting on somebody else to do the work? And when I said to everybody that we were going to not just pray, because faith without works is dead.
Right.
Just is.
Man.
We were going to.
And then tomorrow have a good day. But even if you can't have a good one, don't you dare go messing up nobody else's. Him, very good. Honey, this got dark.